Okay, Bismillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Binar I'm from the class 9A and today I'll be presenting about time management for students. So, firstly, let's discuss why time feels very short sometimes when we are at KBM or maybe when we are learning. Why does time feels very short? Well, here sometimes students feels like there's not enough time in a day normally, and the problem isn't actually how much time there is in a day, but it is how we actually use that time to be productive or not productive. So it is how we actually manage our time in a day. So that's where time management comes. First, what is time management? So time management, it means organizing and planning your time effectively. So it means like how do you divide your time to each sections of activities so you can actually get the perfect time, the perfect productive time and the perfect non-productive times for each of your activities. And if you actually done this time management right, you don't only work smarter and better, but you can actually be more productive and be much better at a real life skill, because time managing is actually a real life skill for later when you are older, when you are already working, not just for schools. But for this time, I only discuss it time management for students. So you can be much more productive and finish your task later with less stress. And then, why is it actually important for many students in our generations? First, you can actually get better grades by time managing your day by day activities, because by that you can have a specific time where you are much more productive, which means you can put your hardest tasks in there. And then you'll get less stress because you won't be needing to multitask too fast. And you have much more free time if you actually manage your time. And also real life skills, as I said earlier. Then there's also time management wasters. So, what is actually time management wasters? Time management waster is an activity where it basically ruins your time in a day, and it can be very unproductive, which by that it can actually lead you to some very wasted times in your day, making you less productive, more stress and other things. And it can also ruin the time management you're planning on. So here are some common time wasters in students in our generation. Firstly, there is social media scrolling like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and other things. And then there's also gaming with no time limit. For example, playing some games even though you have a project that you have been working on for days and days, but you haven't even finished it because you always game and you don't have any time limit for your management. And then there's also delaying tasks, which also can be unproductive because by delaying tasks, you sometimes either do the first one, social media scrolling, or the gaming with no time limit. And then also multitasking too quick also decreases your time management skills and also one of the common time wasters. So you need to study yourself. When are you most productive? And because everyone has a different productive time. Some people being productive at the morning, some people at the afternoon, some people in the evening, or some even at night. And you must study yourself. You need to know when your peak energy is, when you are most productive in a day. So after that, you need to actually put your hardest task, your hardest project, anything that's hardest that is productive in that peak energy time. So you'll be much more productive and you can actually save much more time by that. And here's some tips and tricks on how to be productive smartly. First, you can divide your tasks. You can divide times for your task. For example, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. you start the first project, for example, application. And then from 10 to 12, you start to do, for example, your English projects or other projects. And then af- after 12 until 3, for example, you can work out or anything. So you can divide your time for your tasks. And then you can also label your task, whether it is important, not important, or maybe you can divide your task or delegate, or maybe you can just put it aside so you can work on it later. And then simple to-do lists, just yeah, like simple to-do list, but it's much more simpler. And then you can also organize your workspace so you feel more comfortable when you are working on your task and projects. Then here are some planning techniques. You can use various of different planning techniques, but here are some of my favorites that I oftenly use. First, there's the time blocking technique, where you actually divide your day into chunks. Like, for example, the one I told before in the divide times for tasks. Like 4 until 5 p.m. you need to study, 5 until 6 p.m. you can break, and then repeat. And then there's also the Pomodoro technique, which basically just not directly the time, but the so for example, you can focus for 25 minutes and then you rest 5 minutes and then you repeat it 4 times until you can have a break for example, 30 minutes or maybe a longer break than just 5 minutes. And also 3, the to-do list, which is probably the most easiest to actually follow. You can write either 3 until 7 things per day, but my note, just keep it simple so you don't feel really overwhelmed. And then set SMART, SMART goals, as specific. It basically, what exactly do you want to do? Either doing your projects or maybe some homework to do. And then M, measurable. Can you actually track your progress? Is this project realistic enough with your time limit? A, achievable. Is it realistic? Can you actually achieve it in that time? And then R, relevant. Does it actually align with your bigger goals? If that task or that project is your own personal project while you still have other projects, other bigger projects to do, then you can put it aside for some quite of time. And then last T, time bound. When is the time you actually want to finish that project, your task? When is the time? So you can actually divide your time like what I said earlier, so you can actually know when you can actually finish the task. And then you can also track and reflect your progress weekly. So at the end of each week, you just ask yourself, what worked well? What made me waste time? And what do I do? What do I want to do to fix next week? Because just by these 3 questions, you can actually reflect, you can track your progress, what actually made you waste time, so you can decrease that time and put more project, put more task in. And then by these 3 questions, this reflection can keep you improve and build your self-awareness. So there's also task delaying. So how do you actually beat task delay? I actually have some 3 ways of beating this task delaying. And first, say to do the task for 2 minutes. Just say to yourself, I will do this project for 2 minutes. And then However, it's gonna be you will actually do it much more than 3 minutes or 2 minutes. So that is the technique. And then uh, there's a second, break big tasks into small steps. So in like the to-do list that you are gonna make, for example, you want to build your own personal website. You break down into smaller steps. For example, make the homepage. Homepage, there is your picture, there's your bio, and other things. And then your portfolio, put it into like English, IT, Dinia, and then inside there's also smaller steps again. And then lastly, make distractions harder to reach. For example, if you are too distracted with your phone every day when you're doing your tasks, your projects, put it on another room so you don't really get distracted easily. Or maybe you can actually use some focus apps, which I think for me it's better to use Notion, because Notion is a pretty great application, and it is also available on websites that can be connected to your calendar, your reminders, and other things. And you can actually track your progress, reflect in there, and also make day by day activities, your planning, and other things. So, lastly, stay consistent, not perfect, because you are not a robot. You can have some lazy days in your week, and that is okay. The goal is to actually build small habits and stick with them consistently, because, like the quotes, small pebbles can later on lead to big mountains. So, maybe that's all from me. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Maybe that's all for my time management for student presentation. Um, Let me close. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.